think you're all aware of what the writings tell us, Paul Abdul-Bahal, the beloved guardian, about the unity of the community, that unity and fellowship is the basis of the magnetic attraction of the rest of the people. And Shoghi Effendi encourages, he says, what that means, because we're not all perfect, and we don't enjoy each other's company as much as we should, he says you have to overlook slights and insults that you receive from other Baha'is. You know, the last thing you think is, Baha'is shouldn't make me upset, but that's what makes us non-Baha'is. We can put up with practically anything, but the Baha'is, my Baha'i sister said, or my Baha'i brother had. So we form these attitudes and grudges, and we harbor, not you, but some people, we harbor feelings, negative feelings about each other. And there's a letter from the Guardian, quite serious, that I've quoted in this book about the forces of our time. He says that feeling and thinking negatively about others opens our hearts to the forces of darkness. What does that mean? And what are the implications? Now, it's not easy to swallow the insults and unkindnesses of other Baha'is. That's not easy. But that's really our goal. We have to do that if we're going to create unity in the community. And as my wife says, if you pray for somebody that's bothering you, regularly, steadily, eventually they stop bothering you. Then she smiles and says, unless you tell them that you're praying for them. So that's something to bear in mind. Now, what are the forces of darkness? I mean, Shoghi Effendi outlines, I've found, you can maybe find more if you study hard, I found 32 forces of darkness that he mentions specifically. And he says we should study the forces of darkness, be aware of them. And these are not, vampires and ghosts and things like that. They're the lower self of our own nature, our own lower selves, our selfishness, our grudges that we hold. And most of it is born from materialism. Materialism, he tells us, has created irreligion and unbelief, and has poisoned the whole atmosphere of the world. We have no idea what it would be like to live in a world where people believed in God and tried to obey Him. We're in a terrible situation. Shoghi Effendi says, really we've invited the punishment of God by having moved so far away and having imagined that it's not important. And that's why he says materialism is the greatest enemy of the faith, because it makes people think religion's not necessary. If I have a good job and I'm making good money and I have nice holidays, and my kids are in good schools and I have a nice car, really pretty much everything's taken care of, except eternity. That's still a bit lacking in our lives. And because people don't understand the value of that, they really abort their existence here. They enter the next world in a very crippled, unnecessary state of being. Now, opposed to this darkness, these forces of darkness, which the Guardian said the forces of light are in contest with the forces of darkness. The Baha'is have to be spreading the forces of light. Well, what are the forces of light? Of course, they're love and fellowship and unity. The same thing that he says we have to create in our communities in order to magnetize new souls, attract new souls. People have different levels of receptivity. He says there are waiting souls. They're the easiest for us to attract. But the Guardian puts a condition. He said, if you live the Baha'i life, if your life is charged because of the divine words, and because of the prayers, and because of your obedience to God's laws, is charged with joy and light and hope, that acts like a magnet to other souls. The whole question of success in teaching seems to rest on spirituality. And that's the major force of light that we have to contest against all of this. As we embody more and more spirituality, as we reflect the light of Baha'u'llah's revelation, that becomes a magnet which people see the difference. Shoghi Effendi said if people look at the Baha'is and they don't see them any different from anybody else, then the cause is not going to grow. So we're all faced with this challenge, how to change myself a bit, turn up the light a bit. We all say this is the present stage of the unfoldment of the divine plan. One of the prerequisites in the divine plan that Abdul mentions there is that the Baha'is, the believers, must become incarnate light, embody spirituality and light, that their words may penetrate and have effect in the hearts of others. In one word of the Guardian, he said, if the Baha'is live the light, then Baha'u'llah will send souls to him. Send souls to us. A little bit easier than knocking on doors and trying to find people interested in the faith in designated neighborhoods and things like that. It's all fine, we can do that too, but if we really are thinking of the preparation part of service, then we need to think about what Shoghi Effendi says are the prerequisites, these 4 steps which we're going to talk about in these days. That is prayer, meditation, study, and then effective action. If we try to do the effective action, if we're busy with the activities and the goals of the plan, and we don't do the other 3, it doesn't go very far. And you hear Baha'is complaining, they say, well, I do them and nothing happens, it doesn't seem to progress. I can't bear another cycle of growth where there's no growth. I hear this traveling all over the world. I think this is a symptom of us being busy with the plan, but forgetting the underpinnings of the soul's relationship with Baha'u'llah as the Lord of the age, and with his verses as the very means of transforming our consciousness. We're told that as we read these verses of God, the hidden words and the various tablets of Baha'u'llah that are recited, for example, in the gleanings, that our vision is uplifted, it's transformed. At first he says, you should see with your own eyes and not with the eyes of others. Now most of us have grown up in this world, which has been very materialistic in its outlook, and very subtly we have to guard against not absorbing this materialistic point of view. This science is God, a kind of science that doesn't admit of God, that denies God, kind of a disastrous state of affairs. And our school drowns that into us. The media continues to add to it. The advertising is all the same way. Entertainment's based on those values, materialistic values. So it's hard for us to kind of get a grip on what we need to be doing. So the idea is now, how can we focus again? How can we renew our focus? And I certainly don't mean to stand here and judge whether your spiritual life is up to snuff or not. And I'd rather you didn't judge mine either. So let's be equal in that business. But it doesn't hurt us to remind ourselves of what the teachings say about the matter. And that's kind of the content of what's coming in these days. Spirituality. I wanted to quote a letter from Shoghi Effendi, written to a young woman who was pioneering and struggling with the implications of how to live a Baha'i life so that she could be an effective teacher, an effective pioneer. And through his secretary, he wrote back to her, he said, how to attain spirituality is indeed a question to which every young man and woman must sooner or later try to find a satisfactory answer. How to attain spirituality. It's precisely because no such satisfactory answer has been given or found that the modern youth finds itself bewildered and is being consequently carried away by the materialistic forces that are so powerfully undermining the foundation of man's moral and spiritual life. Indeed, the chief reason for the evils now rampant in society is the lack of spirituality. Did we all get that? The chief reason for the evils now rampant, you know what rampant is, active in society, is the lack of spirituality. The materialistic civilization of our age has so much absorbed the energy and interest of mankind that people in general do no longer feel the necessity of raising themselves above the forces and conditions of their daily material existence. There is not sufficient demand for things that we call spiritual to differentiate them from the needs and requirements of our physical existence. The universal crisis affecting mankind is therefore essentially spiritual in its causes. The spirit of the age, taken on the whole, is irreligious. We know that when we try to talk about religion with people. Mankind's outlook on life is too crude and materialistic to enable him to elevate himself into the higher realms of the spirit. And with that, Shoghi is telling us that one of our goals is to elevate us into the higher realms of the spirit. That's part of an embracing of God and of His teachings and of His manifestation. It's this condition so sadly morbid into which society has fallen that religion seeks to improve and transform. For the core of religious faith is that mystic feeling which unites man with God. This state of spiritual communion can be brought about and maintained by means of meditation and prayer. In reference back to these 4 steps we were talking about at the beginning. And this is the reason why Baha'u'llah has so much stressed the importance of worship. It's not sufficient for a believer merely to accept and observe the teachings. We could say, well, that's all we need to do is accept and observe the teachings. This is not sufficient. He should, in addition, cultivate the sense of spirituality, which he can acquire chiefly by means of prayer. The Baha'i faith, like all other divine religions, is thus fundamentally mystic in character. Its chief goal is the development of the individual and society through the acquisition of spiritual virtues and powers. It's the soul of man which has first to be fed. And this spiritual nourishment, prayer can best provide. Laws and institutions as viewed by Baha'u'llah can become really effective only when our inner spiritual life has been perfected and transformed. And here he comes with a very strong indictment. He says, otherwise, religion will degenerate into a mere organization and become a dead thing. We can be busy 24 hours a day with the goals of the plan, and nothing happens. We're busy. We feel like, well, I'm just busy. I'm busier than most guys. I do this and I do that. Pride ourselves on our busyness. That's not the secret of success. The secret of success is to thrust these spiritual roots into the writings of the faith, into the truths of the revelation, and breathe life from them, and then breathe that on to others. He doesn't say in the divine plan, go out and give pamphlets to people. He says, go and breathe life into the souls of others. But then Abdul says, how can the poor give to the poor? So Baha'u'llah says, when you accept the revelation, or if you're Baha'i Zabes, you're born into Baha'i families, when you decide you're going to make this your own faith, not just your parents' faith, but this is my faith, this is the motor of my life, then you want to go back to the spiritual roots and strengthen them so that you have something to give. Can the poor give to the poor, Abdu'l-Baha said? Baha'u'llah says, you should, everyone should arise to teach. If you arise to teach, you should first teach your own self. And as you absorb the teachings and try to live them and make an effort and pray that Baha'u'llah assists you to do that, because you need his assistance in order to do it. There's nothing easy about the Baha'i standard of life. As you do that, then, he says, your words will take effect in the hearts of others. So we kind of have to ask ourselves, if we've been telling ourselves, well, I try to teach the faith and nobody's interested. It's probably that our own interest isn't to a level of excitement and joy and life that would touch the hearts of the others. So we have this challenge before us, looking at, examining our own lives, looking at our daily activities. You remember Baha'u'llah says in the hidden words, bring yourself to account each day. The Bab also in his writings, he says that at the end of each day, examine how your day has been. If you've failed in some of the laws, if you've done things that you aren't happy with, maybe discouraged, that you fell down by not observing the kindness or the love or the decency or the morality that was required in a situation, he said, then you beg God for more strength to do better. Ask him for forgiveness and ask for strength. If you find in your late life that you've done something pleasing to God, something in accord with his good pleasure, then he says, give thanks to God that he enabled you to do such a thing and strengthen you in the future. If your thoughts are occupied that way, and if you're watching during the course of each day the choices you make, because we all have choices every day, we have a situation, I saw there was a tradition from Islam, not in the Quran, but one of the traditions. It says that we have guardian angels, 2 guardian angels, he said, watch over every soul all the time. And Abdu'l-Baha says there are spiritual forces protecting us. God forbid, if they weren't there, he said, we would be destroyed in an instant. From the other side, they're spiritual. They're watching us to see whether we choose free will. We have to choose the good or choose the evil part of ourselves. And each time we do that, it strengthens us, one way or the other. And he says, when we tell a lie in this world, it makes us stink in the other world. And the guardian angels have to back away because it's such a smell. We don't notice it. It's a little white lie. It's made life easier for us, we think. But on the other side, they see it in a different way. So we have to learn also to see the actions and the words that we have and the effects they have. Are we always acting in the basis of kindness? Are we always acting as a response to the love that we feel from God? Are we showing love sufficiently to others? All these questions are constantly before us. The final paragraph of the letter, he says, the believers, particularly the young ones, should therefore realize the necessity of praying. For prayer is absolutely indispensable to their inner spiritual development. And this, as already stated, is the very foundation and purpose of the religion of God. So he's telling us, absolutely indispensable. We're not going to develop our inner spiritual lives unless we pray. And of course, to start, as we will hear from the quotations in one of the other sessions, it starts with the obligatory prayer, right? In the heart. Very special, powerful prayers that Baha'u'llah has given us to remember daily. I remember when I turned 70, some years ago now, I read that Baha'u'llah said you don't have to say the obligatory prayer anymore. He doesn't say you can't say it, you can say it, but you're also excused. When I was younger, I thought, I wonder why that is. When I got to be 70, I realized that by the time I got to sunset, especially doing the work at the House of Justice, I couldn't remember whether I said the noon prayer or not. The question of a 70-year-old faulty memory. Everything is given us in kindness. Allah doesn't need your prayers, God doesn't need our prayers, but He's given them as a means of reaching to Him. So first He says, see with your own eyes, but not with the eyes of others. But then later in the writings He says, you must see with my eye. If you look at me with any other eye but mine, you'll miss me. You won't understand. Now what would it mean? Well, it's the question of meditation. What does it mean to see with Allah's eyes? What could be the implications of that? Question ourselves. We know His writings. We want to judge things according to how He's judged them, or He's given them in His teachings. So that becomes a very important way, through His teachings, through knowledge of His teachings, through absorbing His teachings, through the hidden words particularly, which the Master says, essential every morning and evening that you have the hidden words, read some of the hidden words and think about them. Gradually the mind is transformed and oriented. Contemplation, the way we think about things, is transformed and is lifted by our interaction with these divine verses. Hidden words, the obligatory prayers, the tablets that are in the books that we have. This is the foundation. Now, if in the plan of the 5-year plan you don't hear these things very often, it's because the House of Justice takes it for granted that you already know that. You've accepted, you've turned to Baha'u'llah, you've become Baha'is, and so you're turning to the center of the covenantal activities, which is the instructions of the House of Justice, and it's giving you all kinds of suggestions and clues how to improve our relationship with the public and how to build local Baha'i communities and so on. There's a number of, I'm sure, older people here who were alive back when the Baha'i local activity consisted of feasts and firesides and nothing else. We mostly didn't get ourselves organized to have children's classes. Certainly junior youth weren't particularly renowned for anything but being a nuisance. So look at how we've changed. These core activities that the House of Justice has indicated for us have woven a fabric of local Baha'i identity and community life, which are all derived also from the teachings. Abdu'l-Baha stresses teaching the children. Abdu'l-Baha stresses the importance of classes for children. Then the devotional meeting, Baha'u'llah says every day the Baha'is should go to the Mashq al-Askar and pray. But there's no Mashq al-Askar. Abdu'l-Baha in his lifetime said, create Mashq al-Askars. That is, in the sense of create devotional meetings. What we're calling now devotional meetings are really, in a sense, if we have them at dawn, which we're not all prepared to do, then we have the beginning of that pattern of community existence where the Mashq al-Askar and the friends gathering in the house of worship every morning to gather energies to go out and serve mankind in various ways, in our professions, in our interactions, in our studies. Terrific element to move us forward. With respect to the living the life, is another very important letter from Shoghi Effendi. He says, the great thing is to live the life. Well, live the Baha'i life, in other words, try to live according to the teachings. That is, he says, to have our lives so saturated with the divine teachings and the Baha'i spirit that people cannot fail to see a joy, a power, a love, a purity, a radiance, an efficiency in our character and work that will distinguish us from worldly-minded people. and make people wonder what is the secret of this new life in us. We must become entirely selfless and devoted to God, so that every day and every moment we seek to do only what God would have us to do, and in this way, and in the way He would have us to do it. If we do this sincerely, then we shall have perfect unity and harmony with each other. We will often seeking the will of God and come into conformity with each other. Where there is want of harmony, there is lack of true Baha'i spirit. Unless we can show this transformation in our lives, this new power, this mutual love and harmony, then the Baha'i teachings are but a name to us. And you may remember from Baha'u'llah in the New Era, Abdul Baha says that many people call themselves Baha'is who aren't Baha'is, and there's others that aren't calling themselves Baha'is, but they are acting according to Baha'i qualities and Baha'i life. So it isn't enough just to say that we're Baha'i, but we somehow have to become the embodiment of that Baha'i spirit. And that's the challenge we all have. The House of Justice has asked us for special efforts during this 5-year plan, so that the cause will grow, so that we'll have the entry by troops that we've been preparing for. Abdul Baha says he praises the Baha'is for their efforts, their strenuous efforts that they're making, and then he says, now I want you to increase your efforts 1,000-fold. Well, most of us are tired from what we're doing already in the plan. To think of how we're going to do 1,000 times more requires, again, those qualities he indicates in the divine plan. The selflessness and devotion, where God uses us as an instrument. He takes a hold of us and makes us new beings, because we're asking all the time. We're asking His assistance. And our vision gets fired. And then he says a moth becomes an eagle. And a drop becomes a river or an ocean. And an atom becomes the sun. That's 1,000-fold increase in any case. Whatever. He promises that. He says the sincere ones that ask God, because in this day He's given us the task of sharing the message with other people. And that's a responsibility we can't shirk. 2 responsibilities, Shoghi Effendi says, rest on every Baha'i: to study and to teach. And when we're teaching, he says, we still have to remember to go back and study. Actually, when we teach, we're prompted to study, because people ask us questions and we don't know the answer. We say, I better go read that again and figure out how to answer that. And not just answer with our own ideas about the subject, which don't have anything to do with the Baha'i teachings and don't help the growth of the cause. But even he said the first level of Baha'i teaching is when those new Baha'is talk to people about their favorite Baha'i teaching. And it doesn't matter who they're talking to, that's the one they're going to give them. And they'll tell what they understand from the Baha'i teachings about that subject, and then add their own ideas on. That's the end of the conversation. Stage 1. Stage 2, he says, is when the Baha'is make an effort in studying, consider the principles that Abdul Baha has explained in his talks in the West and everything. Absorb those things. Absorb the spirit animating each of the principles of the faith, and become imbued with that. And then give it out to the people when they ask about the faith, or when they have a listener. Give it out in a correct form, but in our own words. Stage 2. The highest stage, he says, is when we have absorbed passages from the writings related to these same truths of the faith, the essential verities of the faith. We've memorized quotations and passages which we put into our speech. And Shoghi Effendi said, those words have the power to touch the hearts in a special way. So we'll see when we consider the subject of study. One of these, besides prayer meditation, study has lots of aspects to it. We'll talk about that a bit. Look at what the writings tell us about that. We'll see what the role of memory is in that. In the West, we're kind of, not too strong on memory. We think it's impossible. In Iran, non-Baha'i 14-year-olds memorize the Quran. If they want to do spiritual studies, theological studies, they memorize the Quran. You've seen the Quran, you know how big the Quran is. They memorize it in Arabic, and they don't understand the Arabic, and they still memorize the whole book, and they have it, and they can recite it from memory. Well, the Iranians are extraordinary. They must be super beyond any capacity of anybody else. I don't think so. They're wonderful, but I don't think that we don't have the qualities too. I'm a big talker, I don't memorize very much myself. I try, but I found a letter from the Guardian that says we have to be studying all the time. Our leisure time should be dedicated to diving into the words of God, finding the meanings of the divine texts. The more we study the words of Baha'u'llah, the more some of the verses reveal the meaning of other verses. And we start building a pattern of understanding that if we don't read the writings, we don't have. That becomes then the basis of being able to keep up our joy and our light and our enthusiasm to share it with others. Because it's on our mind all the time. So we'll talk with the other Baha'is about it. And if we can get them charged up to read the same thing, then we have something to talk about. Shoghi Effendi says, if the Baha'is don't study, they go to the summer school, what are they going to talk about? The movies and sports and politics and I don't know, all the other things that are out there in the world that everybody else talks about. I found myself at a real disadvantage, having been in Haifa so many years, coming back to California. I didn't know anything. I didn't know that the NFL's champion score makers. I didn't know the name of the important basketball players. Nothing. I was really ignorant. I'm still ignorant. Try to avoid those conversations where I say, yes, interesting. How do we raise the sights of mankind? First, we raise our own sights. Then we look at the panorama around us. Will we arise to the occasion? Will we meet this challenge that we have? Will that then start to attract souls to us? Will we then recognize people in our everyday life that in the next world they're going to say to us, why didn't you tell me about Baha'u'llah? We're going to say, well, I didn't know if you'd be interested. Or we don't have many excuses. But if we're spiritually alive, we'll offer the faith, at least proclaim the existence of the faith. The name of Baha'u'llah, the name Baha'i, that the people should hear, Shoghi Effendi says, is sufficient. That the receptive souls, on hearing Baha'i or Baha'u'llah, it creates an attraction and a curiosity. And then, if they show interest, he says, then teach them. If they don't show any interest, leave them to themselves, and don't argue with them. But, he said, what does he say to do? Pray for them. Remember them in our prayers. Maybe the seed that we cast will sprout later on, under some other circumstance. Once in a while you teach somebody the faith and they don't respond, and after that, terrible things happen to them. It's not a punishment, it's God's favor to them that they could figure out what their life is for and realize that there is a God. Very startling effects they can have sometimes. Shoghi Effendi said it's not a happy experience for people who've heard about the faith and haven't responded to it when they pass away. They realize what an opportunity they missed. The whole purpose of existence here is to recognize the manifestation. And then after that, to act on his teachings, to try to follow and obey his teachings. So, after that very nice dinner we had, that's my preliminary remarks, and I thank you for your patience. And we'll talk about this some more in the morning. Another chance.
Friends, if anybody has any questions, Mr. Dunbar said that we'll just take a couple of questions, so very graciously. So, if anybody has any questions,
thank you so much. It's such a privilege to be among these friends and to listen. I was just saying it's a privilege to be in the company of the friends. Goodness me, is that loud enough? Can I see? Is that okay?
We can all hear you now.
Thank you very much. I wanted to ask if you could elaborate on the section where you mentioned that in the writings it mentions to use our leisure time to study more and to read about the faith, where the reference of that is, and if you could elaborate a little more on that. Because obviously we want to strike the balance, we want to meet with friends of different backgrounds and interests and have a balanced life, but obviously each person is different. But if you could further elaborate, that would be great.
I'll quote the messages from her in the part about study. I'll cite them for you. But the essence of it is, he says, he writes out to the friends, he said, he hopes you will use your leisure time to do a profound study of Baha'u'llah's words. We know from the Aqdas that he tells us, recite the verses of God morning and evening. How much time do we have morning and evening? But that's to give, he says, that's to give wings to the soul. Just to refresh your soul, lift your spirit. The Prophet in he says, immerse yourself in the ocean of my teachings, that you can bring forth the treasures that are hidden therein. And that's a major job. And in one of these letters, Shali Effendi, about leisure time, he says he hopes that you will find at least a couple hours a day to read the text of Baha'u'llah. Well, I got all excited when I said that. I can do that. I'm retired. I should be able to do that. I usually last about 10 minutes and I'm asleep, Well, I tried. But look at what he's implying. What would happen to us if we had a period of time? I think most of it's hard to have the capacity to concentrate because we get full and tired. But if we did more of it, if we did it more regularly, more systematically, as Shali Effendi says, painstakingly study the writings of Baha'u'llah, what would happen to us? Pretty soon, we lose interest for other things and we become an embodiment of these teachings, of these truths. Baha'u'llah had an amanuensis in the Revelation of Baha'u'llah, Volume 1 of Adi Tarzali. There's a picture of Zayn al-Muqarrabi, the ornament of the near one. The title means that Baha'u'llah gave him. He has a white beard. He looks a little like Abdul Baha. Anyway, Zayn he had such integrity and quality that Baha'u'llah in Tabani says, Zayn, anything written in the hand of Zayn of my words is authentic and approved without my signature or seal. What a power, what a position he had. But he also had such capacity that he had a good sense of humor. And he used to say things around Baha'u'llah, does things that would make Baha'u'llah laugh. And try that for a comfortable activity, I don't know. I think you'd have to be very close to Baha'u'llah where you could pull that off. Anyway, Zayn says, my son and I have managed to fulfill 2 verses of the Aqdas. Oh. He says that my son is very good at this one that says, don't tire yourself out by reading the verses of God too much. He's got that one right. He's got that. And he says, for my part, he said, I've been able to excel in the verse, express joy and alacrity when you're invited to parties and feasts. Also, one morning he came up to see Baha'u'llah. Baha'u'llah was having breakfast. They were sitting on a carpet. Baha'u'llah was serving him tea, and he was serving him cheese and olives. And Baha'u'llah said to him, he was drinking the tea and eating the cheese, but he wasn't touching the olives. And Baha'u'llah said, the olives, have some olives, they're good olives. He said, no. Nothing happened. Again he brought it up, and Zayn just looked down. Then he said, God has sworn by the fig and the olive in the Quran. Zayn looks down and he says, forgive me, Lord, but he swore before he tasted it. Next. We'll come back to the theme.
Anybody else would like to ask a question? Yes, I mean.
You mentioned about the idea of the stages that we go through in our understanding and perception of our relationship to Baha'u'llah and the teachings. Do you think there's stages in relationship to consciousness or into the spirituality that we can in some way be able to measure within ourselves?
I suppose as we grow in the stages, which by the way Abdul Baha's outlined as 14, he describes each one of them. So as we see ourselves attaining to those, we could say, well, maybe I'm at that stage, or maybe I'm not, whatever it is. The first stage is the perfect brute stage. Is that you're an animal and you're happy to be an animal and you do all the animal things and that makes you happy. But then in the middle of that, he says there are interruptions of light that enter that total darkness, a spark of light. The soul is confused. How is it? I thought everything was darkness. What was that? Light about. And we've had some of that in our lives. We have. Especially, I think, the non-Baha'is, as we've come to the faith, we had to have some experience like that to make us unsettled, so to speak. So he said the second stage of development, and Chogi Feni names these rather complicated names in the translation in the Gleanings, where he says, there's concupiscence, that's the soul wed to its lower self. And then the next stage is irascibility. Irascible is to be upset, that you can't settle. The Muslims have this in the Quran also, and they say it means you're upset with yourself. Why can't I do what I'm supposed to do? Why can't I find out the meaning of the verses? Why is everything so backward and dark? And Abdul Baha there, he adds a verse from the Quran which says, God will not swear by the irascible soul. It's not cooked yet. The Persians say, not cooked. It's not cooked yet. Then the next stage, he says, is inspiration. Divine inspiration. Well, we could make a lot out of that, but basically what he's saying is, after a while the soul becomes inspired from the divine side. As he reads the verses, he becomes inspired with a knowledge of good and evil. There's one of the prayers he says, help me, oh God, I don't know what's good for me and what's bad for me. Earlier stage, irascible stage. And then he says that's the beginning of real spiritual progress, the stage of inspiration. Then he goes on to he talks about the soul, the assured soul, the inspired soul, the illumined soul, the soul of the kingdom, the soul for the Persians, the soul of the Malakut, Nasir, Jabarutier, the soul of the dominion on high. Then he talks about the divine spirit itself, which is at the top, that is reserved for the manifestation of God. So it's quite a range, it gives quite a long. I hope we'll have that in translation one of these times. Abdullah gave it to a Muslim in Akka, the whole outline of this thing. So we have some idea where we're supposed to be reaching to. That's a challenge. I know, you have to squeeze it out and let it go ahead.
Are there any more questions? One more question. A quiet group. Yes,
Does it have to be related to what we've spoken about?
You can ask anything you want, and I can answer anything I can manage.
Okay, I will ask, and if it's appropriate, we can. I have had a lot of friends who served at the World Centre, and I've known from a distance through that channel, and also when I was on pilgrimage, how beloved you have been to the youth, and the special connection with the youth that you've had, and the impact of your encouragement and your accompaniment of the youth on their service and on their lives. I'm interested to know if you could. I'm fascinated by youth myself, and I would love to hear from you what your journey has been. What was the magnetism? I mean, obviously the youth are magnetic, and being amongst them is, soul reviving, and you gain their energy. But I would love to hear what your journey was. What attracted you to the youth, and what do you think was what was your observation of the youth along all of these years that you've been with them? Any of those questions would be greatly received.
Would be a whole evening's worth.
Please. I think many of us would stay until you were ready to go to bed.
I don't know how much I can say about that tonight, but the working with the youth was also, I thought it was more rewarding to me than it was to them. It was I've been active in the teaching field before I came to Haifa, and before there were youth in Haifa, there were Hands of the Cause and members of the House of Justice. I wasn't about to give classes for them, so I had to wait till the youth came, and then I started the youth classes. They went on for 31 years, and I think about 6,000 youth went through those classes at various stages. What that's done is made a world full of friends for me. Every place I go, I meet the Baha'i youth of the World Center that are now fathers and mothers and grandmothers and grandfathers, depending on which generation it was. And it makes it very nice. The friends serving at the World Center, they need nourishment too. If they got the idea of studying on their own, they'd be fine. But they didn't always have that. So back to the same kind of examining together the writings and getting excited about what comes from paying close attention to the divine text, how it changes. It's a different kind of, those words are a different kind of words, and they endow us, they infuse us with energies and with vision that nothing else does. And they replace the borrowed vision, the knowledge that Shoghi translated me gone with all of us. There's two kinds of knowledge. There's heavenly knowledge and satanic knowledge. Satanic knowledge is, it says, is this the one they borrow? One borrows from the other and they get proud. And we go to college and we read all kinds of books and we take bits and pieces of it all and sew it together in a new way. And we say, oh, I have a new book and a new theory. And It's all based on borrowed stuff. So we should turn to the source for inspiration. And the arts and sciences, he says, come out of those words to us from those detached souls that are in the other world. They radiate through the divine verses. And also the presence. Paul says his presence when he's the living book, when he is the walking word of God amongst us, he's this divine presence himself. But he says, after my passing, look to the verses, that you will find me dwelling in the verses. So if you think, oh, it'd be lovely if I could attain to the presence of God, that's where it is. But it takes a certain way of looking at it. And that's why I was always trying to convey at least the mystery of that to some degree to the youth. Keep your nose in the writings. Make sure you've read them, and not just once. You can never do the exam, It's over and over and over. Okay, friends, good night. We'll see you in the morning again. Thank you.